Well, we continue our conversations here, and it's time for us to welcome representatives and stakeholders from industry. As we said, today is the 22nd of September. It's the date for the GST rates, the GST rate cuts to be rolled out, and it's also the start of the festive period. Mr. Vaidyanathan, Mohit and Santosh, great to have you join us here on Reforms Reloaded. My very first question to you, Santosh, how many Mercedes cars have you sold since morning?
Well, I landed, and before I came in, I went to our dealership on the way, and I think the excitement is palpable. You can just feel it. Our expectation is the next 8 days will record the highest ever per day car sold in history in India, for sure.
That's good to hear, but there's also a lot of pent-up demand, right? Because August was virtually no sales.
That's true. That's true. To be fair, August till 22nd, it was almost breaks on sale. So all of this has to be recovered. So for sure. But I think there is a lot of optimism that even the festive period starting October 2nd, the Dasharas and Diwali should deliver even a double-digit growth if possible.
Double-digit growth if possible. But how much cheaper have the cars gotten? Because for the auto sector, the cut has been significant. I mean, for the the smaller cars, the cut is from 28% to 18%. For cars like yours, you're 40%, but no cess. So what does that now result in on an average in terms of price cuts for you?
So average cuts are close to between 5 to 8%. So average for us in luxury segment will be around 6%, which is translated to the customer. So yeah, that's substantial when you look at in rupee terms, somewhere around 1.5 lakhs to 10 to 20 lakhs.
1.5 lakhs to 10 to 20 lakhs. But does the rupee move impact you, or is it likely to impact you?
No, surely. Actually, if you take away that euphoria of the 6-8%, this is the same pricing we used to operate in 2024. And subsequently, we have been taking up price increases quarter on quarter or even once and 3 times in a year because the Forex has moved from 89 to 104. We are still priced at 94 to 95. So we still have a 10% headroom to price even more. So that's, I think, the negative part of the story. But right now, with what the industry was going through, you see the CAGR, it was all flattening out. This measure couldn't have come at a more appropriate time. So I think the entire industry, including us, we decided we will postpone the increases further, but right now pass on the GST benefit to the customer and revive demand significantly.
So before I get Mohit to comment, so what should we realistically expect now in terms of industry growth, as well as you gave us a number for yourself saying you expect double-digit growth. Industry-wise, what would you expect?
So CM has revised its projection from 2 to 3% to 4 to 5%, so at least doubling it. India is a 4.3 million car market, so a 2% growth is 70-80,000 cars. So that's significant. In the next 3 to 4 months' time, we had this backlog, and we could see signs of slowing down a bit in the second quarter of this year. So I think coming back from those era and to have a full year impact of 2 to 3% more, I think it's significant.
Well, we look forward to hearing more from you, Santosh. I'll come back to you in just a second. Mohit, let me come to you. For the entire FMCG basket as well, the cut has come at a time when the government is trying to boost consumption. Unlike auto, it may not necessarily result in the kind of drastic cuts that Santosh is being able to offer on his cars. But, most items come down to the 5% bracket as far as FMCG is concerned. What do you now expect in terms of demand pickup?
No, I think this is going to definitely improve the demand and the consumption. I think FMCG, the kind of cuts that you see, for example, there is a 1 rupee price point which hails in India, which contributes to around 20-30% of the consumption, bringing it down to 93 paise. In absolute terms, doesn't mean much. If you translate into number of crores for a Indian market, is 2 lakh crore.
Yeah.
That is the kind of substantial impact it will have, which is what PM Modi also mentioned. So I think the sentiment is going to improve. Because of the sentiment, the demand is going to improve. Because of demand, investments are going to improve. Because of investments, I think the employment is going to improve. And Indian economy is really going to benefit. That's what I feel. In terms of tangible numbers, if you ask me to illustrate it, in India, the middle class accounts for roughly around 50 crore consumer base in the country, and this is coming at a time when consumption was extremely sluggish in urban India, and urban is comprised of middle class. This 50 crore consumer base is expected to go up to around 70 crore by 2030. So huge improvement in the middle class segment in the Indian industry is there. And this improvement or this reforms is going to only improve the consumption. Let me take an example of a 25,000 rupee earning household per month. Now, approximately 1,000 rupees to around 800 rupees on a 25,000 rupees earning household is the impact. So the annual impact, if I look at the income tax reform, direct taxes and indirect taxes, this impact is going to be around 17 to 20,000 rupees on a 1.5 lakh earning household for the whole year. This is substantial, which is going to translate itself in a consumption boost, in my view.
Well, that certainly is the hope. But, you were talking about that 93 paise price point now. And what are you going to do about that? So are we likely to see more changes as far as the grammage is concerned, especially on these low-ticket items?
Yeah, so India reigns with these magical price points, which we call, they are really magical price points. So 1 rupee, 5 rupee, 10 rupee, 15 rupee, 20 rupee price points. And they contribute to good around 40 to 50% of the overall consumption of the entire basket of SKUs that you sell. So sometimes, when a consumer comes to a retail outlet, he says he doesn't want a particular brand. And rural economy is like 60% of the total consumption. So he says, "Mujhe 10 rupees wala pack de dijiye." And he doesn't talk about a brand at all. So therefore, these are magical price points. So these magical price points cannot be breached. And therefore, in the beginning, we are trying to take it down to around 93. But eventually, it will lead to a commensurate grammage increase in these SKUs, yes.
Okay, so grammage increase is what we're likely to see across the board. I'm coming back to you, Mohit, in just a second. But let me get Mr. Vaidyanathan into the conversation as well. All of this is probably or hopefully going to result in increase for credit requirement. At the bank, how are you seeing all of this play itself out? What's the target that you're working with? What's your expectation?
Okay, first of all, I want to tell Santosh something, man. Come on, do better, man. 2 to 4%.
Do better? How much better? How much better do you want him to do?
I mean, it's 2 to 4%. It looks so low. Come on, Santosh, do better, man. Come on, this is a stage for you, and you should do something better, okay? So that's that. So,
Santosh, are you taking up this challenge? Are you going to be able to do better?
Yeah, the RBI has already reduced interest rate thrice, I believe, this year. So now up to the banks.
Yeah,
Reduce small, we go by 10%.
He's thrown the ball back in your court.
The banking system has, of course, reduced interest rates, but you better do more sales activities and create the markets, okay?
He'll definitely offer a better deal to him.
This is the virtuous cycle that needs to move.
So, no, really, first, the GST 2.0 impact itself, let me just say that about ICRA estimates, SBI research estimates, IDFC research estimates, all are pointing out to a consumption lift-off of close to about 2 lakh crores. Banking system credit on that could be something like, again, by research, is about 1.7 to 1.8 lakh crores. And that could mean about a 10% increase in a growth rate sense, which means that last year, if whatever the growth rate for the country would be, it would be plus 1% is our real estimate. That's very significant, considering that the banking system overall credit is about 180 lakh crores. So that's quite significant. Secondly, where is the growth going to come from?
Exactly. That's what I was going to come to.
Yes, where is the growth going to come from? So this growth is going to, as you know, the biggest, there are two kinds of cuts have happened here. One is the essential items, like food, paneer, milk, etc., which has all come from 5% to 0%. Now, these were consumption items that people are anyway consuming yesterday without the GST of 5%, will consume tomorrow also. Which is a good thing in its own sense in terms of segment it addresses. But the significant one is going to come from the consumption cuts, the one that has come from 28% to 18%. Now, car prices are down like 10%, or will be down 10%. 10% for 10 lakh rupee car is 1 lakh rupees, big money. Let me give you how much it may translate in terms of EMI to a normal person.
Yes, yes.
So, if you think of a 10 lakh rupee car, which will now cost 9, assuming a loan amount of, say, 7 lakh rupees, and EMI earlier would have been, say, 16,500 rupees. Now EMI will be 14,500. So 2,000 rupees per person per month for 60 months is the reduction in people's EMI. On top of this, like Santosh pointed out, interest rate also came down.
Yeah.
So interest around product cost good down. So both things are actually very significant. And I think this is a material moment. And when we said the other factors that government also reduced the income tax rates, so all three things, interest rate, that one, this one put together, I really believe that 27 will be a lift-off year.
27 will be a lift-off year.
Yes, 27 will be a lift-off year.
So, the banking sector has already had a very good run. When you say 27 is going to be a lift-off year, what could that mean in terms of profitability?
Actually, profitability of 27 will be very good in my opinion, because see this 26 is kind of suppressed because of the the repo rate that got passed on, some more will get passed on this quarter, etc. But all that will become base case. The microfinance issue that happened, all that will become base case. So all that will become base case. So 27 will be, coming off, let me say, a low base, so to say. So in a profitability sense, I'd say that not just credit growth should look better. I believe that the profitability also should look meaningfully better next year. At least for our bank, you should expect that we should look meaningfully better in 27 over 26.
That's the headline. V. Vaidyanathan says 27 is going to be a lift-off year, but
meaningful improvement.
meaningful improvement. But we were talking about interest rates, and I'll get Mohit and Santosh to comment on that as well. We've got the MPC coming up. What's the expectation? Status quo or a cut?
Before you call Santosh in, Santosh should commit to a
He's not letting you go. He's not letting you go, Santosh.
I mean, 2 to 4% is so disappointing, Santosh. You have to do better.
Just to clarify,
you don't grow. No. He's clearly in the market to buy a Mercedes, right?
Surely. No, but it was on an annualized basis. I still said double-digit growth for the next 4 months and moving on. So, but for the full year effect, I said.
Okay, thank you. That sounds better to us.
Just to clarify.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
But on the MPC, what's the expectation?
No, see, we got to wait and watch actually, because the could come down, could be wait for a while. So this is not there's a bigger important is a cycle. The cycle in which we are in, that's more important.
Yeah, and the cycle suggests that it is definitely accommodative.
Accommodative, and could be coming down also. Now it's anybody's guess. It's 25 basis points. Yes, no, neutral. We are looking at this yearly cycle playing through, and already 100 basis points cut, CRR cut. Some CRR cut is going to play out this quarter, next quarter. So that's why I feel more bullish about.
So liquidity, ample liquidity in the system.
Liquidity is no problem at all. Deposits also not a problem. At least our bank is growing deposit 20% plus. So deposits also not a problem. So when you grow deposits, it gives you good license to grow loans. But I can say for the banking system as a whole, I think this is probably the year in which whatever negative we had to factor is factored. I think next year should be better.
Yeah, okay, should be better. Santosh, let me come back to you now. Let's talk a little bit about, since we're talking about the reforms and the road ahead. What we are seeing at this point in time is also a move to try and ink as many FTAs as possible. The EU-India FTA, which has, of course, been long in the making. The expectation is that we could perhaps get to some sort of a conclusion as far as negotiations are concerned by the end of this year. Will that materially change your plans for India, from India?
No, for sure. We as multinationals have always advocated free trade, fundamentally because we feel that the economic growth is significant whenever the borders open up. And it's just not about the tariffs, it's also about harmonizing the regulations, for example, between countries. So, I think Indian automotive industry has also come out of age. So the access to bigger developed markets which has money in their pocket to sell and export grows. As far as we are concerned, surely today more than 90% of the cars we sell in India are locally produced. So they hardly have a 15% tariff when it comes to parts and components. So that won't change. The 5%, which is our CBUs, which is all those exotic cars, the G-Wagons, the Maybachs, there is a lot of expectation and anticipation that prices may come down. But in the real sense, we would say no, because...
You're disappointing him again.
No, we need to see that by this time this materializes. Already there is a 10% gap between the pricing and the euro. Plus, on top of it, from a contribution perspective as well, the challenge for India is we don't get allocations. There is much more demand on these cars. Some of these cars even have waiting period running to an year. So what would improve is customers would get better access to cars much faster. We may get even much more cars allocated to India once the FTAs happens. But in the larger scheme of things, I think two-way trade will go significantly higher. That opens up new opportunities for us as well to look at India differently. We have been 30 years in India. We call it strategic patience, been there. But I think also from numbers, in these 30 years, we sold more than 2 lakh plus Mercedes-Benz. The 1 lakh Mercedes-Benz has been sold in last 6 years. So that's the kind of demand and the uptick now that we see. So an FTA.
So when do you expect to sell the next 1 lakh Mercedes-Benz? How much do you believe you're going to be able to crunch the timeline down to?
2 years.
It depends on all the forecasts. I think we have to look at all the factors in, and this is where the forex is one aspect where we are not able to put a finger in, and that's will go back to because a 5% increase in price will take us back to pre-GST 2.0 pricing. So we are back to square one. So this is something, and that may happen as early as 1st of Jan next year, because we will not be able to hold on to the pricing. So this is
because of the rupee depreciation.
The rupee depreciation. So I think on the other side we have enablers like FTAs, which by end of the year, if it concludes, and maybe it takes another 12 months for a trickle-down effect to come in, that's a positive side. So we have been strategically patient, will continue to be there, and the hope is positive for sure.
Well, strategic patience, that's a new term that we've heard here from Santosh Iyer. But Mohit, you were talking about this virtual cycle, and I think that's the question that the government is also asking, that look, we've done the heavy lifting now by way of the income tax cuts, by way of the GST rate cuts. It's time for industry to go out there and do some batting on the front foot. What kind of capacity utilization are you currently looking at? Are you looking to set up fresh capacity given the kind of demand expectation and demand visibility that you have?
Yes, Shireen. So we expect the demand actually to move up by at least to 500 to 600 basis points going forward next year. And next year is going to see a real boost in consumption and the demand, and which is going to have a trickle-down impact on the investments. So just to illustrate an example, the demand boost happened. We put up a capacity of around 1,000 crore in Madhya Pradesh around 4 years back, and we are at almost like 70 to 80% capacity utilization. So what the GST, another dimension to the GST reforms has happened is that we used to get GST benefits in a lot of places where we used to put up our manufacturing locations. For example, Tezpur or the backward areas, we used to set up manufacturing locations. With the GST rates now reducing from 18% to 5%, that is no more valid. Okay. So it calls for capacity relocations from one plant to the other plant. For example, in Tezpur, we end up losing something like around 100 crores per annum of the benefit that we get out of GST. So it calls for a relocation from a GST from a Tezpur to a south of India.
Oh, okay.
So besides the augmenting of demand and the consumption and the investments which will go up and the employment which will go up, that will call for capacity installations. There will be relocations of capacities also which will happen for a lot of FMCG companies that I know, which are availing the benefit. So that's a little flip side, but we have to work around the same.
Yeah. Yes, and I guess many will have to navigate that. We've got Rajiv Memani, the president of the Confederation of Indian Industry, here, and we're going to ask him to join the panel in just a second. I would imagine that you were out buying a Mercedes-Benz because Santosh Iyer was basically talking about the fact that his dealerships are completely chock-a-block, which is why Rajiv has managed to come to us a little later than we had when we had expected. But
and Vaidyanathan has managed to get a great hard bargain from him. At least 10-15%.
Not yet. He's trying.
But
he's trying. Maybe by the end of the panel. By the end of the panel.
No, let me just tell you the reality. Okay, I'm not in the market buying Mercedes, but over the weekend. Really, I'll give a real case. Okay, over the weekend, I actually tried purchasing a car which is the sub 10 lakh category because the weekend driving, small parking, easy stuff. So the person actually told me, and Santosh is interesting, that he said that it is a small car. And he said that the GST benefit you're going to get, I'm going to give you upfront, even though the GST cuts have not come. So how are they managing that, really?
You have touched a super touchy topic. There is something called cess.
Yes.
And the dealers are really grappling with, because the government has said that they can't compensate this cess as of now. There are still deliberations on, and that's the reason the dealers, to offset the cess balance, are just throwing away cash. So it's something that the dealers are trying to push, along with some OEMs also encouraging to give this benefit. But it is going below the balance sheet, and it will hit for sure the profits.
Yeah, in fact, the Association of Dealers, FADA, has raised this concern with the CBIC and with the government, but at this point in time, there hasn't been any agreement on the way forward, but perhaps we will hear more. Rajiv Memani, welcome to Reforms Reloaded. Thank you very much for joining us here. So were you out shopping?
Yeah, I was. I'll keep quiet.
But
I was certainly not shopping.
You were certainly not shopping. But what's the view coming in from CII, Rajiv, at this point in time, in terms of confidence, in terms of demand, in terms of investments, on the back of the measures taken by the government?
So I think just from a CII perspective, I think we have mentioned this. I think this is a really far-reaching reform. CII has been requesting the government on this for the last year or so, year and a half. I know government has also been working on this, but what they have come out with is far more comprehensive than what anyone expected. The time frame with which it has come, the clarity with which it has come, and also it's not just rate reduction, but it's also a structural reform. So, 2 rates simplifies things a lot. Otherwise, there was a multiplicity of rates. Ensuring that, they are now setting up the appellate tribunals. They are now committed to set up a national appellate authority. So I think if I look at the overall package, and without actually putting in any legal requirement to say on anti-profiteering, I think nudging the industry, and to industry's credit, I think industry after industry have come out and voluntarily saying that we'll be passing on the benefit, which is, I think, makes sense from an industry perspective also, is great. CII is very hopeful that with the kind of, at least the feedback that we are getting from our members, is that the various soft signals that you get, number of people visiting websites, number of people going to dealer stores, I mean, he'll have much better idea of that. The soft signals that we are getting is that it's lined up for a very positive 1 month, and I think it coincides very well with Navratris today. So I think overall I would say it's very positive, and hopefully the investment climate, which had, because of the geopolitical things and geopolitical uncertainty, it had got mired a bit. Hopefully this gives the impetus for people to look at investing, because eventually for the government to accede to a lot of the requests that industry is making to make India more competitive, from an industry standpoint, I think it has to lead to more investments as well. Because unless you don't have more investments, the entire thing of greater manufacturing in India, greater economic value added in India won't happen. So, Shireen, we are very hopeful. I think that this will not only lead to greater consumption in the short term, but also it will lead to overall it has to lead to revival of investment activity. That's very critical from a country standpoint, and also for, as an impetus to future reforms that we will see. And also the way it's been done, we've not talked much about it, but I think also from a macroeconomic standpoint, I do believe that the government has balanced this very well. I do anticipate that they will look at other forms of incremental revenues to make up for this, at least in the short term. By the time the GDP growth picks up and makes up for this shortfall, I think there will be other forms of revenue, whether it comes in accelerated privatization, other things. I think that momentum will also come through.
You missed the session that we just had with the DPAM secretary, where he talked about that. He said that the hope and the expectation is that they will be able to beat the disinvestment target, which was a modest 47,000 crores, but the hope is that they'd finally this year be able to beat that with a bunch of OFSs and minority stake sales, etc., that they are planning. But that's where I want to take the conversation. What's next? The ask of industry is go out there, be competitive, put out globally relevant and globally competitive products. We heard that from the Prime Minister yesterday. But what next now on the industry wish list of what you want from the government, Rajiv?
No, I would say, from what I think GST was high on the wish list. Macroeconomic stability was high on the wish list. I think those two things are big tick boxes that have happened. If you look at that, then you start coming into more sectoral issues. I think India is probably right now having its lowest tax regime that we've had, whether it's in terms of personal tax, if you look at corporate tax, if you look at revenue neutral rate of tax, if you look at interest rates. I mean, if you look at the last 10 years, 15 years, and the number of simplification and reforms that the government is announcing almost every week, whether it's for MSMEs and others, I think it's been very, very positive. So I would say now you come to the sectoral pieces. So in power sector, for example, if you have to look at factor reforms, for India to be more competitive, I think power cost has to be higher. you almost have a 40 to 50% loading that happens, either because of the cross-subsidization or because of captives, you know, the load that you have to take. Now, eventually, if tariffs have to be reduced and India has to be super competitive, then, you know, power cost is also an integral part of that cost that has to come down. And the only way it can come down is eventually when either you give another license for distribution, or you start saying that we will privatize distribution. It's politically challenging, but I think eventually something like that.
But many states are now moving in that direction, including big states like UP.
UP, yeah. So if that is successful, I think that should be a great nudge for some of the other states. Then, you know, if you look at, again, mining, there is no reason why India is sitting on some of the largest reserves of coal, some of the largest reserves of iron ore. We should be opening up those reserves. Some of them are sitting with state government, some of them are sitting with public sector units. So either through joint venture, participation or whatever else, you open up the mining reserves so that India becomes more competitive from a manufacturing standpoint. Then, you know, once you get a mining license, it takes you almost 2-3 years to get all clearances. First you get environmental, then you get forest, then you get into other things. So right now it's a lot of detailing, and then the import strategy, you know, which if we are looking at the large items that we are importing today. So for example, compressors. What is our strategy for compressors? If you are saying high voltage transformers, what is our strategy for high voltage transformers? I think it's crystal clear that for India to move ahead, India to succeed, we have to very sharply focus on greater domestic value add within the country, and whatever enables through ease of doing business, through factory reforms, reducing your costs, and having a targeted strategy by products, by sectors to say how you can move that forward. I think that will be critical. And if you want, I can get into more and more details.
I can see that. That's what happens when you become president of CII. You have a laundry list.
You only do this.
Laundry list of asks that you have for the government. But that's an important point that you brought up, Rajiv, because we heard from the Prime Minister yesterday as well. Of course, the call for self-reliance and Atmanirbharta has been on the table for a while now. And yesterday, the Prime Minister talking about Swadeshi once again. Santosh Iyer, you know, when you hear comments like that, does that worry you? Does it concern you? How do you see it?
No way. You know, as Winston Churchill said, never let a crisis go waste. India did great with the COVID, post-COVID. I think this is again with what's happening geopolitically and the clear intent from the government to make the best use of the current, whatever geopolitical crisis happening. That's a step in the right direction. We have been, as I said, in India for 30-odd years.
But are you Swadeshi or are you Videshi?
Very much Swadeshi. As much, I have 10,000 Indians working in Bangalore developing R&D for the world. I keep saying there is an India in every Mercedes sold anywhere in the world. We have a non-banking financial company which is more than 1 billion in portfolios. So a lot happening and a lot invested in India. So for sure, our growth is fully linked to the India's economic growth and progress, and we would love the economy to grow. I think one of the big things which helped automotive industry was also infra growth. You know, during COVID period when there was no much of industrial growth or auto segment growth, the infra outpaced the growth, and that really helped. That to some extent has also, I would say, normalized to some extent. So the continued focus on infra should definitely help. And of course, Dil Mange Mo, the entire ease of doing business. You know, we are celebrating GST 2.0 with a 6% reduction in taxes, but there is a 20% every state in India puts on cars and bikes and automobile as taxes, which is registration tax. Our worry is now states would use this opportunity and increase their taxes and revenue. So I think India's federal structure is, it's not one India, it's many, and therefore more simplification, more I would say standardization. I think that's the direction which should be taken, and as India grows, we are super confident we would also take the full potential of the market.
Mohit, how do you see the comments that came in from the Prime Minister yesterday, or asking people to buy Swadeshi?
So I think it's a forum where I can't be so much vocal for local. So I think with the multinational head sitting beside me, but I think we've never been shy in saying that. I think that's the real thrust to the country. I think doing things which are Swadeshi. I think with the GST reforms coming in, I'll just give you an illustrative example, it's done so much of good to the Ayurvedic industry. We are the world's largest Ayurvedic player today. And with the GST reforms, what we see optically is just a reduction in the GST rates. What we don't see is procedural simplifications which have actually happened, procedural reforms which have happened. So what they've done is that the difference between a consumer shifting from an unorganized brand to an organized brand, the difference has got bridged to a certain extent. Just to say, a local Chyawanprash in the market will have a 5% GST rate, a branded one will have a 13%. Now, with this classification change, it has just got simplified. All the branded medicines, Ayurvedic medicines, have all fallen under the bracket of 5% now. There was so much of ambiguity. A local, not good quality product used to be selling at 5%, and the good quality product used to be selling at around 12%. So all that has been bridged. That's going to give a major boost to the Swadeshi productions of India. So that said, oral care, for example, toothpaste I'm talking about, I think this will give a major boost to the Swadeshi movement in the country, where Swadeshi companies produce here, they sell here, they pocket the profits here, they give employments here. Unlike a company which will be manufacturing here in the garb of made in India, but not born in India, manufacture here, but the royalties will move overseas. Is that the right way to do it? This is what I think the call for the day is, vocal for local. That's what I would say. So, you know, I've actually, and it goes sector after sector after sector. So we don't have to see only investments made in India. We have to also see the profits retained in India, the employments given in India, the investments coming back to India. Are they going to overseas markets or are they being retained in this country?
Okay. Well, you know, this is a whole entire debate that we can continue on. But let me talk about the next phase of reforms with you, Mr. Vaidyanathan, in terms of not just the financial sector, but overall, from a growth perspective, from an inclusion perspective, from an investment perspective. What would you put down on the list?
Well, as you know, a lot has been done. Basically, the big ones that have been done are the well-known ones, the GST, the IBC, the digital ecosystem opened up, etc., and the latest one on tax reforms. Well, India has still a long way to go for ease of doing business. The other day I was coming from Singapore just last week, and the ease, the ease with which we enter the country is mind-blowing, right? You just put the passport in and nobody's there to touch you, just go through it, and you come out. And it shows, it reflects in every part of the way those countries are evolving, the way they manage the airports. You know, even after all our reform, you come to our airport, you find, you know, perfumes and I don't know what is coming at you, and 10 people surrounding you and asking you to buy the thing. I mean, if at all you do it, you really, you know, pick up a nice role model like a Singapore, and I think do that. And secondly, you know, there are a lot of reforms yet to be done, I'd imagine, on all factor matters, land, labor, etc. There's just lots to be done. But as far as financial sector is concerned, I think really a lot has been done with the arrival of digital ecosystem. Now, credit is much more smoothly going to the lower end of the pyramid. Our bank ourselves, talking of GST since it's a context, we are financing close to 600,000 washing machines, refrigerators, laptops, mobile phones, two-wheelers, etc. 600,000 a month. That's like 7 million a year. That is the number of financing that is now being enabled because of this digital ecosystem. So the
retail loan portfolio for you on the back of all of this, what do you expect that to grow to?
We expect this to grow. But one key point I'd like to say here, Shireen, see, because we have a tendency generally to think of discretionary products, so to say, and we think of food, etc., as essential, and a washing machine as a discretionary. But I would say that when we look of the new India, at that point of time, a washing machine or a refrigerator is not exactly discretionary. Can you imagine a household? Many of us who belong to that generation realize how it is to live in a household where you wash your clothes by the hand for hours together on weekends. So having a refrigerator which keeps the milk fresh for 2 days at a stretch. So my point is that this is not discretionary. For a new emerging India, I would start beginning to call these as essential.
Yeah.
And this is one fundamental distinction. In that context, this reduction of this, 28% to 18% for consumption items, and I'd say it's a very meaningful step in that context.
No, absolutely. It is a meaningful step, as you point out. And, across the board, ACs, refrigerators, hair dryers, a whole bunch of items which were
are essential. Can you go to America or a US or a, to a US or a UK or Canada and say that, look, if you have heating equipment in your or air conditioner, well, it's a discretionary item. It's not. In a cold country, that's essential. Yeah. Similarly, for emerging New India, a refrigerator or a laptop is not a discretionary item. It is essential. It
is an essential item. You're very right in pointing that out. But Rajiv, let me come back to you now and let's talk about, the geopolitical environment that we're also faced with. And many would argue that in some ways, giving the domestic economy this big consumption boost or lift off to lift where these term, that we could perhaps offset or mitigate to some extent the risks of what's happening globally. How do you see that, and what do you believe will be some of the risks that we need to be prepared for as we look at this increasingly uncertain global environment? I mean, over the weekend, for instance, we've seen what's happened as far as the H-1B visa issue is concerned. An assessment and an impact of that as well?
No, I think that we have not done any assessment impact because it's still not clear what the final law will be. I mean, I think, so once there's clarity whether it's one time, whether it's not one time.
It is one time. That they've clarified. It's not on renewals, it's one time.
But till the time it doesn't come out. So unless these things don't come out black and white, I mean, the pace at which they get announced and they shift, I think it's so to answer your question, Shireen, we are in, I mean, everyone knows, a very complex geopolitical, geo-economic issue. And basically, for every country, 2 or 3 things are very important. And every country is looking at it. First is that you have to find a way that you create greater value add in your economy. The second is, those items where you have supply chain risks and over-dependence on anything. I think we have to start strategically. It cannot happen overnight, but the government and private sector have to start strategically moving on those areas to say that you de-risk, because this is not a one-off event. I'm presuming that this is probably to see what, I mean, if you look at events after events that are happening around the world, whether, what we saw happening in UK, US and everything, there's a massive shift that's happening to the right. I think that's something that we'll have to be very careful of. The third thing is that you have to diversify relationships. So I think India's recent signing of FTAs, the FTAs that have been signed already to look at the version 2 of that FTA, more strategic engagement with regions like Middle East and others, I think those are, hopefully, FTA gets signed with EU, ways in which we can look at, engage with other emerging countries like Africa, Latin America and others. So I think we have to diversify our relationships so that there is strategic independence in the way India as a country operates. And I think fourth, I would say, is that the narrative of India also, we need to communicate much more effectively. I think there is a lot of muscle memory to say, I mean, if you talk to investors, there was this tax issue that happened, there's this issue that happened. But overall, I would say for most foreign investors, they've done very well. Returns have been pretty strong for most of them. So we have to, I mean, I was just, what Mohit and you asked Santosh, I think for me, Swadeshi is something where you're creating value in India. Irrespective of where you come from.
The parentage doesn't matter.
Parentage, I don't, India is very open. We need investments. We need to create more jobs. We need to be engaging with the global economies. We need to become more competitive. I don't think India should be going to a point, and I don't think that's the intent of the government or the Prime Minister, to say that we should be a closed economy. But yes, you have to create greater value add in the country. That's very clear. And I think it makes sense. You have 1.4 billion people. You have the youngest population in the world. You have to create greater an economic opportunity for them. Otherwise, we'll have a social situation in our hands. So I think it's absolutely the right strategy. I think it has been the strategy, but I think we really now need to give it for things, ease of doing business, factory reforms, unlocking those parts of the economy where there's greater potential. I think we need to do some of that with much greater speed. And I think the way the government of India is approaching in engaging in a very independent, very strategic, at the same time not making any noises or anything, I think that's the right way to approach. Whenever I'm engaging with people around the world, I think they're really, and in the country, they're really appreciative. Even those whose industries have been impacted, I think they're really appreciative in the way India is engaging with all the challenges. You have new challenge almost every week, but engaging with confidence, in a diplomatic way, with a calmness, that shows the intrinsic strength of the government and how we are, how we want to deal with these situations as we go ahead.
And one thing we didn't talk about, Shireen, that even one of the good things that the sin goods, so to say, that have come up now, gutka, pan, chewing tobacco, cigarettes, the kind of stuff that has been loaded upon them is absolutely right, because they're actually doing no good to anyone at all, sure only increasing health problems in the country and maybe addictive. I think, I'm not sure luxury is in, so over a period of time, you got to have Santosh there, he'll probably, the first time he'll agree with me. But then, that, I'd actually differentiate between, domestic luxury and foreign luxury, because at least domestic luxury, even if you're Ritu Kumar or I don't know, for garment making, they have some embroidery going on somewhere, some workers being some crafts, some design, something's going on in India. And someone like all these people here are getting consuming it, and therefore that's good in a way, right? You got to that's also its own economy, but which is actually a good economy, and value add is staying within the country.
Yes.
Vis-a-vis, of course. Some luxury where some value add is going out of the country as well.
He has it in for you today, Santosh. He's not giving you a break, is he?
I need to get.
You don't have a strategic financing tie with ideas.
It should happen by end of this session.
He has his own NBFC. Maybe that's the problem.
He'll definitely get a good deal on his car for sure.
No, I don't want
upgrade him from the small.
No, I am not in the market of buying any luxury car, to make it clear. But let me tell you, therefore, that the cracking down on sin goods is good, and I think that's one of the highlights. I think it's got missed out in the process.
Yeah, but I think you make a valid point that also don't see luxury as sin, because that's its own economy and that has a significant multiplier impact as well.
Domestic luxury.
Domestic luxury. I like that distinction, domestic luxury. So I'm going to wrap this up. Final comments from each one of you. Rajiv Memani, one number that you will be watching very, very closely in light of all the measures taken and now ahead of the budget?
I think the Q3 GST collection and GDP growth, I think that will be interesting. What happens in October, November, December? I think July, August, September, because of monsoon, seasonality, the GST change, I think the full impact will not come, but how October, November, December will be really interesting to see how things shape up there.
Both in terms of GST collections as well as the GDP growth rate. Santosh, one number that you would like to put on the table, and we'll hold you to account to that.
I would sharply look at automotive sector growth itself, nothing more here and there, because I think that also to some extent reflects a larger stuff happening in the economy. So, and we have drawn a correlation as well. So maybe very keen to see the next quarter automotive growth compared to the last year's and the CAGR impact as well.
And where Dinathan as a customer.
For sure.
Mohit, volume growth. What volume growth will you realistically put on the table?
I think around 300 basis points of increase in consumption, definitely backed by volume, is what we should see. I think that's something that should definitely happen. And it is both going to be two-pronged, both urban and rural. Rural is already chugging ahead of the curve. I think urban was lagging behind. I think this middle-class boost on GST and income tax boost, which has happened, I think definitely will help the urban growth to actually resurrect back to the same level as the rural growth. I think we are very hopeful, and I think as a representative of the FMCG industry, I think we all resolve to pass it on to the consumers, and as an industry, we will do our best that it all goes to boosting the consumption and the investments and employments in India.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That certainly is the hope. The last ball of the match to you, Mr. Vaidyanathan. So you better hit it for a 6.
I would look out for really the income and employment at the bottom of the pyramid, because I think that big pass on that has happened, it should translate and should improve their lives, because that's where the real, the real need is, so to say, as compared to all of us. The second thing is, of course, that GDP growth for 27 is very material, because I'd actually say that because prices of goods will come down, inflation will probably come down by 60-70 basis points because of the GST itself. So in the short run, this whole cut could actually be reduce GDP impact by a short period, I may say 1 or 2 quarters. But so we should look through 1 or 2 quarters. What should really look forward to that the impact of this is next year is going to be material, like 27. So I look out for 27 GDP data, 27 employment data, 25 investment data, 27 data for people at the bottom of the pyramid.
And 27 profitability data for the banking sector. And
for the banking sector and of course our bank.
And for IDFC Bank in particular. Gentlemen,
That's
what
right.
an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here on Reforms Reloaded. Thanks very much for your time, and look forward to hearing more from you as we start to get the hard data coming in terms of sales and in consumption. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause. Sorry, we're out of time, sir. Okay, very, very quickly.
So my question to Mr. how you are watching the index of the consumer from the MRP point of view? I give one example. आप GST कम कर देंगे, GST कम हो गया. Olive oil, 1 liter bottle, MRP is 570, 540, and B purchases 240. I purchases 240. He purchases 300. He purchases 400. How you see our interest? You see the case of medicines.
Yeah.
एक शॉप पे लिखा है 22% डिस्काउंट, एक पे लिखा है 5% डिस्काउंट, एक पे 0 डिस्काउंट. If I go to nursing home, he charge me the MRP plus 5% extra.
Yeah.
आप लोग जीएसटी की बात करें 2%, 3%, हमने 7 पैसे की बात की, 10 पैसे की बात की. आपने कभी कंज्यूमर का इंटरेस्ट देखा है कि हम जो MRP पे इतना मार्जिन छोड़ रहे हैं, किस लिए छोड़ रहे हैं? ये सीआई वाले बैठे हैं, बताए किस लिए कंज्यूमर.
Thank you. Got it, sir. Got it. Let me get them to respond to that.
Mohit's answer that.
Mohit's ready.
So I think there's so much of angst. So I think one thing is, from an industry perspective and from the government regulatory perspective, there is an MRP regime. अब ये MRP regime रहती है, इसके ऊपर जो डिस्काउंट दिए जाते हैं, ये हम लोग देते हैं थोड़ा सा डिस्काउंट लुब्रिकेट ट्रेड करने के लिए, बट प्राइवेट इक्विटी फंडेड प्लेयर्स और ज्यादा डिस्काउंट देते हैं, जैसे बिग बिलियन डे वगैरह पे. सुनिए ना,
आपने मार्जिन छोड़ा है, आपने 50% मार्जिन थोड़ी छोड़ा है. आप जो बिलियन आप MRP 540 क्यों लिखा है? आप जो MRP लिखा है 540 क्यों लिखा है? Why don't you write 300 rupees? तो मतलब इसके नेक्सस बिटवीन द डीलर, एक डीलर को नेक्सस है, तो मैं नेक्सस बिटवीन द
Right.
dealer.
Got it. Got the point, sir. Got the point. But I think industry is cognizant of what you're saying, and of course, you want to.
Sir, we are trying to maintain a price equilibrium. Just to assure you, हम desperately try करते रहते हैं. क्या होता है इंडिया में ना, पूरा transformation हो रहा है for the trade, with e-commerce coming in, quick commerce coming in, which are private equity funded, and there is a general trade also. So we desperately try to maintain this price equilibrium, and we cut the stocks wherever somebody is trying to undercut the MRPs and give huge discounts, etc., so that we maintain the price equilibrium. But MRP reductions, to your point, are happening in account with GST, so that will go on and will be passed on.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're completely out of time, but thank you so much for joining us here this afternoon. We truly appreciate your time and look forward to hearing more from you.